know about you, but the teen shows that I grew up watching made me think that literally every teenager was effing like rabbits. Left, right, center, up, down, top, below, all the things I thought. Judging from what I saw in the media, it was just really dreadful to see, like, the constant sexualization of teenagers.
Right here in this elevator? People have to go up and down?
Yes, they do.
Start with history.
And of course, in these teen shows, adults often play teenagers on television, but for decades, Hollywood has concurrently hypersexualized real-life teenagers and children, and it's just plain gross. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about the hypersexualization of teens in TV shows and in media as a whole. Now, hypersexualization, as you all know if you've been here for a while, is a topic that I love to broach. I'm deeply interested in displays of sexuality in the media and how they affect us psychologically and how they reflect our sexual decisions that we make in our real lives, what we see in the media of like how our bodies are supposed to look like and what we're supposed to be doing with them. That is deeply fascinating to me. So definitely check out my hypersexuality playlist where I talk about this in depth. I have a whole assortment of all the videos that I discuss this topic in. One of my favorite shows growing up as a teenage girl was Gossip Girl. I mean, not only as a teenager, I was watching it again in college. I was rewatching it, and my God, did I love that show. First of all, being from New York City, like being able to see my city in all of its glory and the fashions and the looks, and just, it really was the moment. Like, if you're a millennial, you probably grew up watching Gossip Girl. I mean, it was a cultural phenomenon. I distinctively remember the poster for one of the season premieres, and it just said a nasty piece of work. I just remember parents being super up in arms about it because it was super sexual. And Gossip Girl, by the way, it wasn't even like on HBO or like, I don't know, a cable network or whatever. It was on a regular network, and I think it used to come on at like 8 o'clock Eastern. I even remember what time it came on. That's how much I loved that show. Like, it was my favorite show. And here were some of the other posters that were made to market the show. Every parent's nightmare. Mind-blowingly inappropriate. Very bad for you. So you can see that the show made a very deliberate attempt to be provocative for shock value because they knew that, honestly, sex was going to sell. The amount of intercourse that these teenagers were having was absolutely unbelievable. Outside of Gossip Girl, we also had like 90210 and The Vampire Diaries and Teen Wolf and so many others that it just seemed like these people were knocking boots like 24/7. And I'm just like, on average, were teenagers really doing it like that? Like, were they? I'm not gonna lie, like, I was dipping and dabbling in some things, but like, were they really doing it like that, like to that extent? It was just really over the top to me. Or if they're doing it, they're not doing it very well. They're trying to figure out how their bodies work and what they like and don't like, but are they doing it like rabbits, like how these shows portrayed? Quite frankly, teenagers are not having nearly as much sex as you see depicted in television shows, in movies, and in the media overall. In fact, a 2017 study in child development looked at survey responses from 8.3 million teenagers given between 1976 and 2016, and researchers found that while just over half of the high school students in 1991 reported having sex, only 41% did in the early 2010s. In fact, the publication The Insider reports that America as a whole seems to be going through a sex recession with sex frequency at an all-time low. And even with these surveys, you have to imagine when teenagers are self-reporting how much intercourse they're having, there's obviously a lot of pressure to say that you are engaging in intercourse, even if you're not, because once again, these shows and the media portrays that if you are still a virgin, you're a loser, and the most popular girl in school is the girl that has the most intercourse, and the guy, quite frankly, as well. The movie Mean Girls is yet another example of the hypersexualization of teenagers, but let me preface this by saying that Mean Girls is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I think it's one of the most iconic films to ever be made, but we do see that the most popular girls in school are the ones who are hypersexual. Regina George is fawned over by all the boys in school because she's, well, hot, and only when Katie hypersexualizes herself and undergoes a makeover is she fully embraced by the plastics. But I will say that Mean Girls does teach a meaningful lesson, because we see that when Katie changes herself to be something that she's not, there's a multitude of negative outcomes. And so I think the ultimate takeaway of Mean Girls is to not change yourself to be popular, not be shallow, just be a decent human being, and maybe you won't get ran over by a bus. One of the most iconic displays, or I should say infamous displays, of teenage hypersexuality, I think, would be Britney Spears's Rolling Stone cover. She was wearing a bra and like lingerie. Mind you, she was like 17 at the time of this cover, and the way that they were lusting after her and how interviewers were constantly asking her about her boobs and just really inappropriate questions when she was a teenage girl.
Everyone's talking about it. Why? Well, your breasts.
And Britney's mother, Lynn Spears, is the one who pushed her to adopt this sexy persona to have her compete with older pop stars like Mariah Carey. And Lynn apparently insisted that Britney should be marketed as a Lolita, even if that meant that Britney would be treated as a sex object by the media. And even when you think about Britney in the Baby One More Time video and how she's like wearing like a schoolgirl outfit, like, obviously a schoolgirl is a child. They were literally trying to portray her as like this jailbait, like Lolita. Oh my gosh, she was like 16 in Baby One More Time. And just the whole schoolgirl thing, by the way, the hot schoolgirl fetish is really freaking creepy. I don't know who came up with that, but it is extremely creepy that anybody would fetishize a schoolgirl. It's actually disgusting. And I don't know if I've talked about this. I think I talked about this in my catcalling video that I made a couple of years ago. But I went to Catholic school, right? My whole entire life I went to Catholic school. And so obviously I wore a school uniform. And I distinctively remember wearing my Catholic schoolgirl uniform and walking home from school, because I used to walk home from school because I lived within like a 5-minute walking distance from my school. And the way that I was catcalled in my school uniform, which obviously denotes that I'm underage, constantly I was being perved on and sexualized by grown men. Adult men would follow me in the street. They would follow me home, catcall me, try to talk to me, and just be really disgusting and creepy, like men in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. Like, I remember being in Harlem one day with my mom and my sister, and we had just come back from Victoria's Secret. We had our bags in our hand, and we're just walking through the streets of Harlem, and this like 50-something-year-old man literally comes up to me, grabs my hand, looks me in the eyes, and like winks at me. Like, disgusting violation. It was like, I was like 13. I was like 13 years old. It was absolutely like throw up in your mouth, disgusting, like so foul. And one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was Never Been Kissed. And I recently, oh my God, unfortunately subjected my boyfriend to having to watch that movie with me. And when I tell you, when I watched that through my current lens, through the lens of an adult, oh my God, I cringed so hard. That movie is so terrible. The whole plot line of that movie is Drew Barrymore's character is undercover as a teenage girl, but really she's a grown adult. And her teacher doesn't know that she's a grown adult. And she ends up falling in love with her teacher. Her teacher is flirting with her throughout the movie. And he ends up saying, I've always been in love with you. I've been in love with you since you came to this school. Mind you, he thought she was a teenager all along. And that was the plot of the movie, was the grown-ass man fell in love with a girl that he thought was a teenager, and that was somehow supposed to be okay. Like, that movie did not age well. And I also think of the movie Clueless, which I also recently rewatched, and again, the plot line of that movie is Alicia Silverstone's stepbrother who is in college, and there's Alicia Silverstone, Cher, who's in high school, and her whole thing is like, oh, I don't like high school boys. I like grown men. They're more mature. And I'm just like, girl, no, you mean you like predators because you're a teenager. Like, what? Like, and these movies were like cultural phenomenons, like when we were growing up, and now I'm looking at it and I'm like, they literally age like milk. It's so disgusting. And I talk about this often on my channel, just the idea that there is so much pressure to have that aesthetic. There was this girl who was like the most popular girl in middle school, and her name was Veronica. Fake name alert. Veronica, though, that's her name for today. Her name was Veronica, and she was the most popular girl in school. You know how like our desks, I don't know how your desks look like in middle school and in elementary school, but we used to have one of those desks that you like flip out, like you, how do you say, like you would open it up like almost like a suitcase. But basically she would lift her desk up and she would flash boys. She would literally flash boys from underneath her desk, and she'd be hooking up with every boy in school. Mind you, we were in the 6th grade. I know the 6th grade was a very traumatic time for me. I'm always telling stories about the 6th grade for some reason, but it was very traumatic. But she was the most popular girl in school. Why? Because she was like doing stuff with damn near every boy in school. So that kind of behavior is often rewarded with popularity from a very young age. And you take these messages in and you feel like, oh, that's what boys want from me. They want me to hook up with them. And then we end up in a situationship and we end up giving our bodies to men that don't deserve it, which I've talked about on this channel. You should check that out in my Hookup Culture is Toxic for Women video. But I feel like we grow up and we take on these identities and we feel like that is going to lead to male validation, and it doesn't actually go anywhere. And we give men our bodies that don't deserve it, that are just objectifying us, because from a young age, whether it's the media that we consume or girls like Veronica, who were the popular girls in school who were known for flashing boys and doing all kinds of stuff with boys. And then on top of Veronica, there was also one of my ex-best friends in middle school who I will call Whitney. Whitney was my best friend. We were so close. Like, Whitney and I would talk on the phone for hours every single day, 7 days a week. After school, we would talk on the phone. And this was back in, you know, the day where we had landline phones. And so she'd call me up on the landline and, you know, the caller ID would come up and my mom would be like, oh, Whitney's calling. My dad would be, oh, Whitney called. Like, my whole family knew her because her name would forever be on my caller ID because we were besties, right? And then one day, Whitney just stops talking to me and Whitney becomes best friends with Veronica. I distinctively remember her. This was back in MySpace days. These girls, we were again in the 6th grade, and they had pictures of themselves at a sleepover at Veronica's house in which they were in their bras and panties at the age of 11, 12 years old. So child porn with a P was being produced and posted to the World Wide Web on MySpace. And the way that I was just so disgusted, I was like, no, I don't want to be friends with these girls. You know, I don't even want to associate with them. I had so many friends who wanted to participate in that kind of life, and I didn't want to participate in that kind of life. Like, no, I was not interested in that. And the way that I was shut out for that, like, they literally stopped talking to me. Like, completely just cold turkey, just stopped one day, just stopped talking to me. And then I started getting bullied, which I talked about in my Thin Has Always Been In video. But yeah, that was what was happening to me in the 6th grade, and I refused to participate in that, and the consequences were definitely there. I know that's not the reality for all women, but growing up in the Bronx specifically, that was the mentality of that's how women saw their bodies. And I'm sorry, my cat is meowing outside. I'm not sure if you heard that, but yeah, that's how women or girls, young girls, were seeing their bodies. And I also distinctively remember that there was a rumor that Whitney was pregnant in the 6th grade, and our teacher literally brought us like into the hall. Like, you might as well have been bringing us into like the police station for questioning, because he one by one brought us in, everybody who was associated with Whitney, to question, is she pregnant? Is it true? Da 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 da. He questioned Whitney, all the things. Like, I remember that distinctively. We were in the 6th grade. Why are we talking about being pregnant in the 6th grade? Why? I'll tell you why. Because the media that we consume, because of just honestly bad parenting in a lot of ways, because that is a part of it as well. I don't want to get parents off the hook. Like, it's a part of it, but as I've said before on this channel, nature versus nurture, like, we are obviously influenced by our parents, but we're also influenced by our peers and the media that we consume, and nobody is immune to it. So as much as your parents are responsible for instilling values in you of what's right and what's wrong, you're gonna get on the internet, as I've said before, numerous times on my channel, and you're gonna be influenced by that. And in my case, there were consequences for not wanting to participate in that, and being shunned and iced out and not seen as being popular or being cool, because I wasn't willing to objectify myself at that young age. Like, no, I was not, especially at that young age. I can imagine how many young girls don't want to subject themselves to being iced out, and they want to be cool and they want to fit in, and they choose to participate in that lifestyle at a very young age. And it's very heartbreaking. And Soleil Moon Frye, who was also one of my favorite actresses growing up, who was famously in the show Punky Brewster, she was in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, she was in so many other shows. She also was constantly being sexualized, so much so that she ended up getting a breast reduction at like the age of like 14 or 15 in order to curb all of the just unwanted media attention that she was getting.
After Punky, I did a pilot. The pilot did not go. I was excited to be in school, but I started developing. And I started developing rapidly, going from a B to a C to a double D to almost spilling into an E, and this all happened between the time that I finished Punky till I was 15. Everywhere I go, people are like, oh, you're so grown up, you know, which was just another way of being like, your tits are so big, you know?
Now, you've gone ahead and grown up.
I've grown up, yes.
These things happen, right?
Okay, yeah.
Little Punky Brewster, now you're cute, big, Soleil Moon Frye. Are you ready for the clue puzzle round?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So the roles that I was getting offered at 13, 14 years old are all tits and ass roles, and I'm 13. I went from living this amazing childhood to almost being forced into adulthood.
And actress Chloe Grace Moretz also discussed being asked to wear a push-up bra and inserts in her bra in order to make her appear to be larger when she was only 16 years old on the set of a movie.
You're telling me that a group of people looked at a 16-year-old girl in the screen tests, and they said her breast didn't look big enough. And they ordered wardrobe to bring me 2 chicken cutlets and a push-up bra at 16.
And in my video, The Problem with Female Rap, I talked about how the hypersexualization of young women and girls ripples through the general public. What we see in the media has a direct correlation on how we view our own bodies. And I'm going to really quickly show you guys an excerpt from that video in which I referenced an article from Common Sense Media. And by adolescence, media exposure is predictive of the internalization of media appearance-based ideals for both girls and boys. Media messages teach girls that looking sexy is often preferred or expected and is equated to popularity and romantic success. And today we have shows like Euphoria that continue to perpetuate that lifestyle of teens being hypersexual. I mean, the outfits that these ladies wear to school, I'm like, why are you dressed like a video vixen to go to your earth science class? Like, I just don't understand. If you're a young girl and you're watching this and you're feeling pressure to engage in acts that you don't want to engage in because it's seen as cool and popular, prioritize your own individuality. But I know that that's hard, and I'm not going to put the onus on the individual. I never do, because all of this is systemic. I think all of this is meant to denigrate women, make them objectify themselves for the male gaze. That is my gripe with certain sectors of feminism. Is this just like free the nipple, like sexual liberation, just stuff? I think that it's gotten a little bit out of hand. While I understand that women's sexualities were oppressed for many, many, many years, there's a difference between telling women that it's okay to, you know, have and enjoy intercourse. There's a difference between that and telling women that your body and what you can do with intercourse is like your ultimate like value, and it has to be your entire personality, and it just has to be for public consumption in the public sphere. And if you don't like that, then you're a prude and you're a conservative and you're holding women back. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. Like, no, it means that your body is your body, and you should be allowed bodily autonomy. And that shouldn't be the only representation of women. And I've talked about this ad nauseum, ad infinitum, how I'm so tired of seeing that even as adults, those are the only people that get elevated, are the pop stars and the female rappers who are hypersexual, with a few exceptions. Especially when you're a Black woman, that is what's expected on you. There are a few exceptions with white women, but I'm just so tired of seeing that. And I also so deeply care about the young boys and the men who are pressured to feel like they need to have a whole roster of women constantly at their beck and call. And if you're not, you know, having a whole roster of women, then you're not a real man. This is why I always say, when we eradicate patriarchal thoughts, and hypersexualization is right up there in that umbrella, then we're able to help all people, not just women, because at the end of the day, men are affected by these toxic ideals as well. When I was a teenager, I was just concerned with just what my favorite bands and music artists were doing, and I was just concerned with other stuff. It wasn't all just sex all the time, you know? There were other things that piqued my interest other than boys. There's more to life than what your kitty cat can do, especially when you're a teenager. Like, come on. The sexualization of children in the media, that's a whole video in and of itself. Also, this is me editing and just wanting to say that the point of this video wasn't to say that all of these forms of media that have hypersexualized teens are bad and that you can never ever watch them ever again, and you have to burn all of your copies of Gossip Girl seasons 1 through 5 that you may or may not own on DVD. By you, I mean me. But nevertheless, the point of this was not to say that these shows are all canceled and just bad, bad, bad. There's nuances. There can be good and bad at the same time. 2 things can be true, 3 things can be true, 4 things, 5 things. There can be multiple truths held all at once. And I just made this video to make you guys more hyper aware of media, because you can love media and be critical of media. You know, I'm anti-stan culture, anti-black and white thinking. I just want you guys to have your eyes open and be hyper aware of how women are portrayed, and just know that it's not realistic for the rest of us, and just don't compare yourselves to these forms of media. And for those of you who do choose to disengage from these forms of media completely, knowing that they have very problematic elements, then you are also entitled to that as well. Let me just be clear. You can do whatever you want. I ain't never gonna tell nobody what to do except for to tell you to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button if you enjoyed today's video. But I'm never gonna tell anyone what to do. I want you guys to do what's best for you. Do you, boo. So at the end of the day, whether you're going to continue to consume these forms of media with your eyes wide open, or you're going to completely just divest from them, you are entitled to your opinion and your thoughts. And I just wanted to present the information to you because, and I've said this before on my channel, I would have wished and wanted that someone could have presented this information to me when I was a teenager, but better late than never. But what I'm always gonna do is call out problematic stuff on this channel. So if that's what you're down for, then definitely stick around and watch some more videos of mine. But we're going to cut back to the rest of the outro that I recorded for this video. And I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I hope you enjoyed this addition to the video. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are there more shows, movies that you can think of that also sexualize teens like to the nth degree? Definitely want to hear from you in the comments down below. How did it make you feel as a teenager? I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed today's video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you really liked it, definitely hit that subscribe button for more awesome content like this. And in our closing last words here on this channel, nobody's free until everybody's free. I love you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all next time.